everyone. Today I have with me Marshall Ryan Maresca, and he is an author. And the book that we are going to talk about today is called The Holver Alley Crew. And I'm just trying to get the glare off of it, too. Anyway, thank you, Marshall. It's been a long time. We have tried to schedule this interview. So finally, we're here.
Finally. We keep having technical problems.
Yes.
Going to be
I hope our technical problems are over with. That's my hope. So anyway, I wanted to talk to you when I got this book because I loved the story so much. And this is the only book of yours I've read. Sometimes I go back but I didn't. I go to the most current, or sometimes I go back and I read them through, but I didn't with this one. I just read this one, and it is in a series, correct?
It is. Okay. That's a complicated. There's a more complicated answer than most stuff. It is also the first of its own series, but it's set in the same setting as my other books, which are also. So I have multiple series going on, but they're all part of the same grander series.
I was getting that. I was kind of understanding that, because I do think that I read that it was the first, but then as I'm going along, I'm reading other things, and I'm like, wait, I think it's part of a different. You series writers, I don't know how you do it. I'm happy that you do it because I do enjoy series, and but I really enjoyed this, and I think that I'm going to have a different take on it than some people. So anyway, so here's my take. I always thinking about it from a different angle, but I was a huge Supernatural fan.
Okay.
Back in the day, before it got weird. And
I thought it always was. I've seen a handful of episodes. I never got too into it, but things that I saw I liked.
Okay. So back in the day, before it got weird, it was centered around brothers, and I happen to have a brother that is 18 months younger than me, so we grew up very close, and we're still very close, and I think I like that dynamic, even though we're not the same sex. I do get the brother thing, and what I loved about this was the brother thing. So as I'm reading this, I'm like, does Marshall have a brother?
No, I do not. I have one sister who's 3 years older than me, but no, I did not have a brother at all.
Interesting, because you did write that very well. You wrote the dynamic of brothers very well, I have to tell you. So that's why I was like, oh, that's what kind of drew me to it when I started reading it. And because I did now it's nothing like Supernatural, just so everybody understands. The only connection is the brother connection. So anyway, so I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed their relationship and the struggle, I should say, of having a brother and having a partner and having, that relationship. But maybe you wrote it from the perspective of your sister, if you're close with your sister. Maybe that helped that. But having two completely different people, but they're brothers, and then there's, strengths and weaknesses in both of them, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was going for, even though, Versi is married and, has a child, that even with that, for each other, they're the most important relationship of their life.
Yes.
Everything else, is going to be important, but the relationship they have with each other is the most important one in each of their lives. And that's going to inform their characters and going to inform everything that they do and the choices they make. Even when they're making terrible choices, they're usually making it because that's what's going to help the other person.
Yes, and that's exactly how Supernatural was, which is what drew me to that. And I have to tell you, since I was so close with my brother in age-wise, we have had very little fights, but when we've had a fight, he lives in Florida. One time we had a fight and he flew here. I'm in Pennsylvania. So, and I have 6 children, and, I have other important relationships, but there's something about that sibling. When we're fighting, it's like, whoa, wait, everything stops, When we're good, it's good, everything's normal. But as soon as we have any kind of disagreement or something, it's like an instant, something's off, something's wrong, I got to fix this, So it is, I love how you wrote that, because it's dead on for me. So anyway, we should tell people what it's about, though. But I'm going to let you do that.
All right. So the Holver Alley Crew it's about 2 brothers who used to be thieves, and then they both went on a path of living a legitimate life. One of them went and joined the intelligence service of their country and was there for a while, and things went bad, and he was then drummed out, and so he's back living with his brother, now his brother and his wife, and they're trying to start a new legitimate business, and then a fire happens right in their neighborhood that destroys their home, destroys their business, destroys everything, and they're left with nothing. And so the only choice that they have left is to go back to that old life of being thieves and then discovering what really happened with the fire. And so it starts with this simple heist and then expands into a much larger thing once they realize that they've got a mission for revenge against the people who destroyed them and destroyed their friends and neighbors on top of it.
Yes, it's kind of like they take that on for the whole community of trying to get, exactly. So, okay, so you said that there's your other books, they're set in this same...
They're set in the same setting. They're in different parts of the city. So while Holver Crew was on the west side of the city, which is a much, much poorer district, we've got the other series. So far, there's 2 books in each of the other 2 series, and more are coming.
Show them to it. I didn't have them there. You could show them to us. I love these covers. That's why I wanted to see them.
I've been so blessed with my covers.
Oh,
I really. So the first book of that is The Thorn of Dentonhill, and then the next book is The Alchemy of Chaos. And then the third book of that series is called The Impostors of Avondale. That is coming out in October. But so that series is set near the main university of the city and the adjoining neighborhoods, which are not as impoverished as the neighborhood in Holver Crew, but are definitely rough neighborhoods where there are street gangs, there are drug trade, and the main character is a magic student by day and a vigilante by night who's trying to shut down the drug trade.
Nice. So for the next book, it's these characters. There's like different characters then.
Right. The next book coming out is the third book of this series.
Okay.
And that series is just called Novels of Maradaine.
Okay.
That's misleading because they're all of Maradaine, but that's
right. That's right.
Because that was the first one that came out. The other series is called the Maradaine Constabulary, and it's a murder of mages.
Nice.
Intrigue.
Wow.
And there will be a third book of that one, which will come out next year, called A Parliament of Bodies. And I should say that the second book of the Streets of Maradaine series, which is what Holver is in, is called Lady Henterman's Wardrobe, and that's coming out next March. So.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the same question that I've asked every series writers that are as complicated as you. How do you do it? How do you set this, so you have this world, and then you have these different series? Like, do you have, there's one woman in Canada that she has, like, these extensive maps for her characters.
Yeah.
Do you have
I have maps, I have spreadsheets, I have... I do all my writing in Scrivener, so there's all like the notes of research and all that you can keep on the side in Scrivener, but I also have my Excel spreadsheets. I have maps from macro level to micro level, from the entire world down to the street level stuff that's books are actually set in. I have handwritten notes that are literally like plastered to the wall in the garage. I have a special program just that is a timeline program, so I can keep everything in a timeline in the calendar of the world. I've done, extensive amounts of like back histories of stuff that was never going to show up in the books themselves, because there's no need to do this info dump of stuff that has nothing to do with this, the stories at hand. But I have all that information, and I just. It's a matter of keeping it straight. Like, I'm just this short of having a wiki of myself. I think, that's a step too far. But, I mean, it is just a matter of keeping track of it all. And
I can't even imagine. I don't know how you live in your brain.
Sometimes I don't either.
You know, just to live there and to be like, okay, so today I'm going to write about, like, okay, so when you're writing a book, do you decide, like, okay, this one needs another one, so I'm going to write that? Or do you have multiple going at the same time? Or do you just focus on one at a time?
Well, in terms of actually drafting and drafting a first draft of any, I'm only doing one at a time. But I do a lot of outlines, and so I have my whole mega plan outlined. And so when I start each book, I know what it's going to be about and what the main plot points are. Of course, anytime you actually write a book, you end up discovering things that you hadn't planned, and then you might have to, more than once I've then had to go through the next outline and be like, oh, this doesn't quite work anymore, does it? And I have to rewrite that outline for the next book and such. But I mean, in general, the main path of how I've got everything planned remains the same.
Interesting. So you are an outliner then?
Oh, very much so. I would not be able to pull this off with the amount and speed that I have if I hadn't planned it out the way that I have.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to me that you series writers, like, you do manage to put a lot of books out. Where some people that are just write like one book, it'll take them 2 years, to write one book, and then they'll go on and write another. But series writers they're really good at like getting all those series out and fast, and because I'm sure your fans are probably waiting for these next series. Not only just waiting, they're probably telling you what they want too, on top of,
I'm putting out 2 books a year, and I still have people who are like, you need to write faster. I'm like,
let's see, I have to eat, and then I have to sleep, and then,
top speed. There's very few people who put out more books than me. But,
it's true. Right, 2 books a year. I mean, that's pretty, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. A lot of people, I always hear like the average is like 1 book a year, but like I said, you guys have it down because you know your characters, or you know the place, and so therefore you can kind of do it a little, I don't know, I'm just guessing because I haven't done it, but that's what I'm thinking is like, well, if you're really in, you got the world, you got the map out, and you got the outline, it kind of comes together a lot easier.
Yeah, a lot of pre-work was done in terms of, building the setting, building the characters, and so that by the time, now that I'm writing, right now I'm currently drafting A Parliament of Bodies, which is the 3rd constabulary book, and the characters I already know very well, and I'm, getting in their heads, getting into the setting of what they're doing, where they are. That's easy. Like, I could, I catch myself where I'm writing scenes where they're just talking to each other and it's not really advancing anything. I'm like, no, I have to, because I can just have
just having a cup of coffee,
whatever, and not have it go anywhere. I'm like, I need to bring it back to the actual plot.
Right. But that's another thing is like that I was so amazed by you is that it isn't just about one series. It's about multiple series. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't even imagine, like, keeping track of I'm really in awe. So, the fact that you can do that.
In a very real way, what I'm doing, like, you have something like Game of Thrones where you have all these disparate plot lines happening, at different times, and sooner or later they're going to sort of come together. So when you read one of those books, you have the Daenerys plot, which is all the way on the other side of the world,
right,
that never really touches the main plots, and you have Jon up in the north, and you have people in King's Landing, and a lot of what I'm doing is if I was doing something like that, but I'm keeping each of those plot lines in their distinct books. So if you were to say take all of the Song of Fire and Ice books and chop them up in their different points of view and reorganize them so that each book was, the same point of view or something, it wouldn't be that dissimilar to what I'm doing right now. Like, in terms of, I have this grander vision, but the way I'm presenting it is in more consolidated story chunks, if you will.
Right. So tell me, like, how did you start? How did you, go back to the very beginning when you started, like, I'm going to create this world, like that kind, what was going through your head?
The world I created on a grand scale many, many years ago because I was like, I wanted to write fantasy, and if you're writing fantasy, you need to make your fantasy world. So to do that, I built the whole world, the entire thing. And then I started writing things that the entire purpose of those stories was, well, I've built this whole world, now I have to show it all to you. And they were terrible. Absolutely terrible. Because it was stuff where the plot was dictated by, now we need to go over here, and then over here, and over here, so I can show you each of these spaces. And so it really was this plotless meander, or as some in fantasy called a travelogue book. That is sitting in a drawer and will never see the light of day. So then I started thinking I needed to fine-tune my focus. So I decided to focus just entirely on this one city and finding the stories in that city. And so I started to come up with this sort of grand epic plot of things happening in that city, and then bring that focus down to each of the sets of characters, and then focus on each of those sets of characters, and then that became the individual series that I'm planning in that. So we have 3 series set right now in the city of Maradaine. I've got a 4th one planned, but we haven't finished that. We haven't finalized that yet. So
awesome.
Once I have that locked down, then we'll be announcing that too. But hopefully, so then we'll have the 4 different series, and then they'll slowly start to interconnect, which you'll see in the book that comes out in October, The Impostors of Avontil, which is the first time you will see the main characters from the Constabulary series interact with the main characters from the Thorn series. So.
Awesome. You went to Penn State, correct?
Yes, I did.
That? And because I'm in Pennsylvania. So I have a daughter at Penn State, and, I thought that I read that about you. But I also have 2 children living in Texas. So, but they're in Dallas, so they aren't that close to you, but they are there. So when you went to Penn State, did you get a degree in writing? Did you know that's what you were going to do? Did you?
No. My degree at Penn State is in film and video production. So that's where my focus. I mean, though I was interested in writing and took writing classes and did a lot of theater there, I actually because I was sort of dissatisfied with what the options were theater-wise at the time. Mm-hmm. So I ended up starting something on my own, which then expanded to become its own full-fledged theater group, which still exists at Penn State now.
Wow. That's awesome. Awesome.
And then when I moved to Austin, I came to Austin in theory to try and do film, but then I ended up being far more interested in in doing theater, and did a lot more of that. And then with theater, I was starting to go broke because you don't make a lot of money in theater. So I switched to writing novels because I had always wanted to. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, then I need to stop, stage managing or running sound for whatever show and focus on this, and then also not be doing all these other little things that didn't advance what I really wanted to do, which was to write books. So.
Right. So, when did you, and when did you get, so you decide, I'm going to start writing books, and, for all our young authors out there who are, trying to figure this path out for themselves, you start writing, do you just get one book done and then get a publisher, or did you, how did you decide that was what you were going to do?
Well, first, the 2 terrible novels that will never see the light of day. Mm-hmm. And those were very much a process of learning, what it is writing a novel, because it is not the same thing as just, writing until you have 100,000 words. It needs a backbone, it needs a structure, and both of those did not have that. They were just a lot of writing until I was like, okay, and now it's done. And that's why they're terrible, and they will never see the light of day. So at that point, which was around 2007, I really sat down and did a study, not just of novels, but all sorts of forms of storytelling, including plays, including movies, including television series, and broke down what were the common elements of structure that made the ones that worked, and made the ones that didn't work not work. And came up with how, because I was reading, like, I need to outline these to make them do it. And when I was reading through different ways to outline, I found them very unsatisfying, because a lot of outline systems out there are kind of like, well, you have your introduction, and then there's rising action, and a lot of stuff happens, and then there's the climax. That bit in the middle.
And then a lot of stuff happens, and then it ends.
So I came up with my own structure for how to outline, and then applied that to, you know, the stories that were now cooking in my head with these various characters in Maradaine. And then I wrote what would become Thorn of Dentonhill, though a very rough draft that is only slightly more than half the length of the version that is out here now. And then when I wrote it and polished it and started sending out to agents, I was like, well, while that's being sent out to agents, I need to keep working on something else. And even though I had planned what the sequel to that would be, I was like, I shouldn't write that, because if I don't sell this, then writing a sequel is a big waste of my time. So that's why I then wrote the draft of what was to become Holver Alley Crew. So by the time, and then when I got my agent, he's like, when I first reached out to the person who became my agent, he read the draft of Thorn of Dentonhill. He was like, I really love this. It is too short, and I cannot sell something like this. So bulk it up and get back to me. So that's what I did. And then I sent that back to him, and then it's like, well, I need to bulk up this draft of Holver Alley Crew also. So once I sent that to him, I then did a rewrite of Holver Alley Crew, which also bulked it up to the level of word count that I needed to get it to sell it, according to him. So then, by the time he read and that finished draft of Thorn of Dentonhill and got back to me, then he's now my agent. I had also finished Holver Alley Crew and gotten started on what would become A Murder of Mages. And so then he started sending it out to publishers. By the time he was doing that and was getting information back, I also finished A Murder of Mages, and so he was shopping all three of those at the same time. So then when he sent Thorn of Dentonhill to Sheila Gilbert, who is my editor at Dahl Books, she read through that and it's like, does he have anything else? Because when I had actually had the privilege of bumping into her at a convention, and she's like, oh, you're on my to-read list. So I'm like, okay, good. And it was the next few months were the most stressful ever, because I'm like writing to my agent going, have you heard anything? I know she's apparently like actively reading it right now.
Wow.
And because I had mentioned to her that I had other, first of series with him. So then she had read it and then wrote back to him saying, send me one of the other ones. I'm like, okay, that's not bad, but it's not necessarily good. It's like, okay, so what's happened? Then I get the call that she wanted to, he then sent her A Murder of Mages, and so she bought both Thorn and A Murder of Mages, and then
nice.
First books. So
that's amazing. I mean, I know a lot of authors that's not happened to. So that is pretty amazing. I mean, just that to have it published like that, and be able, are you writing full time? Is this your full time?
No, I also, my wife and I have a business that we run out of our home. I don't have a quote unquote day job where I go to an office or anything like that, but we run a business here where she teaches Spanish to adults and children. We run a Spanish immersion camp in the summer, and she also teaches classes, and I also do all the administrative work that lets her just worry about teaching. So that's what we do. That's our primary source of income, and then also the novels are a nice supplement, but they aren't, but still not taking over their. But I don't have to go to an office or anything like that. All the work we do for ourselves.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm fortunate along those lines.
Right, and you're fortunate to have a fan base. I mean, in this world of technology, to have people out there that can interact with you and tell you what they, like I said, like tell you what they want to see next, what characters they want to see. I mean, I think that is the most amazing thing for authors nowadays. Like, they can actually connect to their fans, you know?
Yes, that's amazing to me because when I was reading all as a kid in the 80s and 90s, reading all this stuff, like authors were this mysterious thing out in the distance who and books just showed up and
right. No, it's true. It's absolutely true. And that's kind of why I do this show. Because I have to tell you, when I was, and I'm older than you, but when I was reading books when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I was reading Danielle Steele. And to me, Danielle Steele was this imaginary person who wrote these books that came out at the bookstore. And then one time I saw a picture of her, like that she was, and I was like, oh, it's a real person. Like, she's a real person, And that was just so awesome. And then Oprah did her thing, and she started to introduce authors out there. And I was like, I want to talk to authors. I love books, and I love every kind of book. And, and that's why I'm doing this. And because authors are fun. They are fun to get to talk to about their books, and your fans love it. And, so everybody gets happy about it. And you get to connect with your fans too, and get to hear about what's coming up next for you. And that's always awesome too, because a lot of times we don't know, but just so everybody knows, what would you call this, like sci-fi?
It's fantasy.
I was thinking fantasy. Yeah. Like, that's exactly. Somebody had left a review on Amazon and was like, it's my favorite sci-fi book or something. And I was like, okay. I was like, I thought of it more as fantasy, so I'm glad I was right. But thank you so much, Marshall. And here is the book, and I'm trying not to get a glare so that everybody can see these amazing covers. Your publisher did do an amazing job with these covers.
I've been very fortunate with the covers, so I'm thrilled with how they come out and all the work that my editor does, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
She won the Hugo last year. She's nominated again this year. I think she should win 2 years in a row. That's just my opinion.
Well, are you doing any kind of tours? Do you go to book signings or anything that people can find you?
The next thing I'm going to be going to, I'm going to be at Comic Palooza in Houston, which is May 12th to 14th.
Yes.
And then after that, I think the only other thing I have currently scheduled is I'll be at Armadillo Con here in Austin, and that's in the beginning of August. But I don't have anything else specifically booked or scheduled right now.
Well, if you let me know the information, I will put it out there. All you have to do is email it to me, and I'll put it on my Twitter and Facebook so everybody can find you, along with the book. And I want to thank you so much. I'm really happy that we got to connect, Marshall. It was so much fun. Yes. And I'll put all your other links too, but please keep me updated on where you're going to be, because I love posting that for everybody, because, I think it's such a neat way to get everybody to where you are, and anybody that wants to meet you and get a signed book. I think it's, I like connecting. I like connecting the authors with their readers. So
I try and keep my appearances up to date on my website, which is mrmaresca.com, and you can also sign up to my newsletter there, so you'll get
awesome
date information.
And I will put that link. I will also put that link at the bottom here so people can just click on it to find you. So Anyway, thank you, Marshall. You have a great day. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.